And let's see if what coffee's brewing. Yeah, it's working. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA. Boy, we got a lot on the docket today. And to start with, let's talk about Dear Santa, an operation that the USPS not only runs, but there's going to be a Hulu 6-part film about. And here's the trailer.
The children all around the world. He's gonna know what I want because I'm writing a letter.
Dear Santa.
Dear Santa.
Dear Santa.
Santa gets quite a few letters. We will send those to the North Pole today.
Santa needs elves because this is a really big world, and he can't possibly do it all himself.
The more children there are, the harder it was to answer all the letters.
I wanted an experience of helping others.
We have elves where the letters are.
We're going to decide which letters to adopt.
Oh my God, I want to pick them up.
Think of it as Santa's special forces, that we make sure that these kids are going to get their Christmas presents.
I invite you to read the letters and see what touches your heart.
Dear Santa, I want 10 buddies for Christmas. I love rabbits. They just filled my heart up with joy.
The Christmas season is a little rough. I'm struggling, trying to make a way.
We had to move because the fire burned our house.
His 11-year-old kid asked for nothing for himself, talked about how loving and awesome his single mother was, and she did the best that she could.
The kid is only asking for love. How can you not grab this letter?
When people write these letters, they're sending it out into the world, message in a bottle type deal.
I just feel like it's my duty to bring joy.
It would mean so much to me for my kids to have a wonderful Christmas. I'm getting ready to cry now just thinking about it. Like it will be a blessing.
Today we are wrapping presents for 62 letters and 171 people and one cat Dookie.
We're planning for success, but I'm still 25 letters off. It's down to the wire.
Go team!
We are here together. We are one. Let's have this moment of unity.
Delivery from Santa.
You'll never know how you benefited someone's life.
It's nice to feel remembered and to know that people still care.
Isn't that something? So anyway, apparently they're allowed to open Santa's mail. I don't know how that works legally, but anyway, what we found out about was that we had Ray from USPS come, and USPS Innovation, and I didn't know all this. You know, that's the funny part. 40 years in direct mail, and I didn't know what the post office did with the Santa letters. Steve Falk informed us that in Canada there was actually a postal code numbered ho, ho, ho. It's funny because they have letters in the beginning and end of the first 3 digits. So H0H and then 0H0. And so we thought that was pretty clever. We see what you learn on these jingle mingles. And so Steve said, because I read an article saying that his kid wrote to Santa, but Santa never wrote back, and that sounded bad. So in Canada, they have the actual postal carriers return a letter from Santa, write it back to the kid, and they I don't know if it's after hours or what, but apparently the postal carriers get a big kick out of it, and so all across Canada they reply, and so I said to Ray, hey, how come we don't do that in the USA? How come kids don't get replies from Santa? Couldn't you automate that or something? And he said, as a matter of fact, we do write back. And so this Hulu film series, which I'm going to try and figure out how to watch because I've never been on Hulu that I know of. My TV has a button for it, so maybe it'll give me a 30-day trial. and I will watch that. It looks like quite the tearjerker to me. But I just wanted you to know, take extra time today to tell you about what USPS is doing. And if you think those jingle mingle fun little get-togethers are nothing, well, they can change your business, they can change your perspective. You'll always learn a lot, and you'll meet some great people that you may not. As Mary England up at Amadon Graphics says, I meet people on there that I never would meet no matter what. It's like, we even had, Mohammed even did dial in from the Gambia. So we had our first African participant. The connection didn't work very well, sadly. We'll figure that out. But Mohammed, I keep giving a shout out to Mohammed because it was great that he tried. I really like to get Mark Ritson in on this. And Matthew Parker's done a few of them. And he expressed regrets that he wasn't able to make this one. But we can't schedule them around everybody's availability. In this case, I just took the graphics from last year, and now next year I'll have to have new graphics because it'll be on a Sunday, I think. But if I can leverage, that's really good. And Sam Fong made it from Colony, which was really nice. We had some really great people. So no, just have a great day. I'm going to go on. No, now we're going to get over to the real news. That's what you got to do, right? You got to talk about the real news. So first off, I thought this was a great article by my friend Ray Schultz, Global Marketing Blunders and the Steps to Avoid Them. And new global trends, sustainability, cost of living crisis, democratization of content, no idea what that is. The blockchain and metaverse, again, not sure what that means to me. Traditional experts have advised international marketers to think globally, act locally, but the study recommends these additional steps. Okay, and this is a global, what's the name of the thing? By Work, sponsored by Frontify. So apparently there's a white paper, and doesn't seem to be a link. So usually there's a link, but I don't see one today. Maybe write to Ray and ask him. Get the model right. Select the model and structure to manage your brand depending on the size and resources of your company. In other words, if you have an international brand, then you better have a two-way process. You better ask more than just the translator. Because the biggest issue, probably the number one issue in the global blunders that we're going to touch on, were on translation. They were pretty much all translation. So don't just let the translator tell you that this is fine. You need to get some people out there in the real world. Presumably, if you market into another country, you'll have distribution and other people there that you can talk to. So you make sure you run it by them. The famous one that isn't included is the Chevy Nova. And Nova, of course, is a stellar term of a star exploding and killing everything around it. But, which is bad enough, It's a bright spot in the sky, but not for the people in the neighborhood. And, but, Nova means that means you don't go. No go. It's a no-go. So that was, again, a translation error, okay? And there's nothing said here about privacy legislation or other local factors that might impact you. But, get in connection with your distribution in these other countries. Procter & Gamble featured an image of a stork delivering a baby when selling Pampers. I think it's selling Pampers in Japan. But there is no stork delivering babies culture in Japan. And there isn't much of one in America either, really. KFC in China translated, eat your fingers off. Ford in Belgium translated, every car has a high-quality corpse. Kia's full speed came out as fartful. Mercedes-Benz, Benzi, in the Chinese market means rush to die. Procter & Gamble tried to introduce Vicks into the German market, but Vicks is pronounced with an F, which is the F word. Nothing sucks like an Electrolux. You know, and Ritson might like this because it'll bring you salience. It'll get you attention. Which he says is probably more important in today's clutter dump heap than anything. Nothing sucks like an Electrolux. That's a pretty good, I think that's a pretty good, you know, suction is important in vacuum cleaners. Pepsi brings you back from the grave in China. Coca-Cola in China bite a wax tadpole. And HBC spent millions on its Assume Nothing campaign, but in many countries the message was do nothing. Okay, which brings us to Helen Edwards' article on why today's marginal behaviors are tomorrow's pot of gold. Okay? And this article didn't go the way I was hoping. Okay, so I'll tell you where it went. And she's got a new book coming out, Helen does, From Marginal to Mainstream. And she says we can be a bit more like Phil Knight, who was the founder or co-founder of Nike. Apparently, Phil and his co-founder, who's mentioned later, went to New Zealand, and they saw people jogging around. You know, New Zealand is a very outdoorsy country. And so rather than people going to the gym, people would put on a pair of tennis shoes and jog through the weather. And so Nike then became an introducer, I suppose, a influencer of jogging as fitness for the rest of the world. And Phil says we may not have invented jogging, but we certainly made it accessible to a lot of people. I didn't know that. I know that Phil, I think Phil was a track coach, and he was trying to figure out how to help his runners run faster on some of the new composite tracks, as I understand it, as they got away from cinders. And, or maybe it was to run on cinders. He actually poured rubber into his waffle machine and baked the waffle pattern into, and then put it on basically on the bottom of it, stuck it to a bottom of a regular tennis shoe to give it more traction. And immediately the runners set new records or something like that, and Nike was born. That's my understanding of Nike. But I didn't understand the connection to the jogging craze. And there's something to that, okay? But then the article, in my opinion, kind of goes south. She says current marginal behaviors, and by marginal, you know, I don't know what exactly she means. I don't know how you define marginal, except behaviors that aren't, that most people wouldn't do. Polyamory, which is a little bit like polygamy, except without a marriage license, so it's doubly illegal, probably. Polyamory, insect protein, which I'm not against, you know, in principle, but I think processing it might have some merit. I mean, for a long time I was on soy-based, and then there were some concerns about soy, and so then we did animal-based protein, but it could have been insects. What do I know what it was? It was just white powder I dumped in milkshakes. Quantified self-measuring. You know, I get on a scale every day, so I don't know how that relates. And microdosing. I asked my wife maybe it's dowsing. Maybe it's that. I know some people go into an ice bath every day. Maybe that's what it is. Ice bathing. Bathing. Some of these I think won't ever catch on, like that one. Not because it isn't good for you, but it's just painful. You know, I grew up on a lake, and most of what we did was ice dosing. It was, you jump off the pier, and it's like, I'll never forget going to the Bahamas, and you jump off the boat into the water, and there's no, like, gasping for air because it's so cold. And I'm talking about all through summer, almost. There's a week or two maybe in the summer, if you had a hot summer, where you can dive off the boat. But if you dive down more than about 5 feet, it goes to 40 degrees or some crazy temperature. So anyway, she rightly points out that the initial adopters, everybody looks at as crazy. Everybody tells you it's wrong. My aunt, for example, way back in the 60s or 70s, well, it must have been 80s, because I started, I became legal drinking age in the 70s, and we had a few drinks. But she gave up alcohol, and it was kind of radical, considered radical at the time. And she said she'd go to parties, and everybody would keep trying to give her drinks. And finally, she learned, which is kind of archetypical in Helen's article. Finally, she learned that if she ordered something, if she had a club soda with a twist of lime in it, people would quit asking her. And so she said as soon as she'd sit down, she'd order something to drink, something that looked a little more like a mixed drink, and then people would leave her alone. But there was this resistance, and she had to be pretty committed to it. So there's an intensity is needed for the behavior to gain traction, and behavior even in one's own life, right? Like I've been on the carnivore diet, and it works extremely well for me, and I get a lot of looks. I've been having my blood tested, and it took down my triglycerides like crazy. So, and if I stick to it, I can really lose a lot of weight. But even sticking to it for 2 or 3 weeks is really hard for me, because I really like donuts and Kringle and peanut M&Ms I had yesterday, and chocolate. I have a sweet tooth that never quits. Where are we going with this? Okay, so where I wanted to go with this article was that this is absolutely right. And I'm revising my, I'm working on revising. I have quite a few notes and an hour presentation on it, but I'm working on revising my book, Spinning Straw into Gold. And one of the things that is a pot of gold is spotting anomalies. And so I'm right on the same page with Helen. But my book focuses on anomalies where you see success in markets that were not identified prior, or see failures in markets that you thought for sure were going to be the greatest. And machine learning can give you a great leg up on identifying anomalies if you use machine learning that gives you information on what cohorts, on what groups of people you're actually identifying. And that's something that our software was designed to do, and most of AI is completely ignoring. They want incremental benefit, but they don't want to understand why, which is a very, very, very dangerous place to be, right? Whereas if you can spot anomalies, if you can spot the exceptions, someplace that did really well compared to someplace that did poorly. I used to tell a story about Pine Sol and a breakthrough of selling it to machine shops and to car repair mechanics, garages we used to call them, but where they fix your engine instead of grocery stores. But I can't find any documentation on that. I've searched and searched and searched, and maybe it's an urban legend. But the idea is that if you can find a place, for example, we sold dog grooming supplies. We worked with a client that sold dog grooming supplies, and when we first modeled it, we found the best customers were in upscale areas, very, very, very upscale areas. And if you've ever seen Best of Show with John Candy, you know that can be a thing. But in the fall, we saw that Best of Show kind of model. We call it the Fifi the Poodle persona. But in the spring, all of a sudden, it was completely opposite. It was completely downscale. Low income, low education, rural, low population density. And it turned out, without going into the whole story, It turned out that dog owners would get their dogs clipped in the spring because the weather was getting warmer. The dog was full of burrs. The dog seemed to like it and didn't care what the dog looked like. And it was a completely untapped market. They had customers, but they didn't know they were. And we had actually built a variable for them, which was pet stores per capita. And that pet stores per capita showed us that it was a pet store phenomenon, not a dog groomer phenomenon. And with direct mail, we were able to treat each market separately. And so I heartily agree that your future, you almost never tweak your company with a little bit better mailing selection or little bit better customer segmentation or a little bit better personalization. What explodes your company, and that's what the 3rd edition of my book is about. If you want to explode your company, you need a new idea. You need a new market. You need a new product application, like the jogging with the cross trainers. So I agree with Helen. What I don't agree with is that for most companies, this is going to be some huge global trend emerging, and that you can time that right. The data, your own first-party data, probably has this pot of gold that you don't know about. And that's something that we have consistently found. I'm not always sure how we find it, but that's the next book. Have a great day. Merry Christmas. Like and share your